Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Security Space podcast. Today I am joined by Bianca Miclea, and she's the Security Engineering Manager at Direct Line. And what we'll be discussing is all about how cybersecurity careers don't have to be linear. What do I mean by that? So essentially, there is this overlying synopsis or this overlying preconception in security that if you're technical, you have to stay in a technical capacity. If you're on GRC, you have to stay GRC. Essentially, if you've grown up in a SOC, you have to purely stay there. And also, if you've been a practitioner, you have to stay there and you can't come over to vendor world. But it's just not the case anymore. The industry is a lot more fluid than you might believe. And taking us on that journey today is Bianca, who very much is the life and soul and the embodiment of that. So I know, as normally, I get the guests to do a little bit of an introduction to themselves, but with Bianca, we'll do that more staggered throughout.
Okay.
So Bianca, I suppose to kick off then, where did it all begin then? Where did your security journey start?
So it didn't start in security at all, to be honest. Didn't study security, come from a politics background. Never thought cyber was one of those things that I always thought, this is really cool, but I could never do that. And as part of an internship that I was doing between my studies, I was completely unrelated again, but they had a threat intel team. So I was like, well, can I just shadow you guys for 2 weeks and just see what you do? It sounds really interesting.
Yes.
It was the closest to cyber that I could find.
Yes.
I did that and I fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with it. So then I went back to my studies for a year. And then one of the colleagues I had at the company actually said, hey, by the way, there's an internship open in the cyber team if you want.
Yep.
At which point he was like, okay, but I've only just shadowed you guys for 2 weeks. I don't actually know what I'm doing. I've never done this before.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking the internship anyway. Thought, yeah, well, sounds interesting. Let's have it a go. Let's give it a go and see what happens. And that's when it all started. I fell in love with it and never left.
Okay. So why did you fall in love with it? What actually was like, this is the one for me?
I think it's a combination of factors. Politics being one of the things I'm not good at.
Okay.
But it was the industry itself. It was in that time when I was doing threat intel, it was just thinking about how various threat actors think and the fact that they're humans behind them and how, what attacks they use and why they will use things that actually they just know they work instead of not necessarily getting more creative with their attacks and things like that. Just it was almost like the psychology of it and how things work behind the scenes. I stayed in threat intel for about 3 years, I believe, kind of going from internship to a research analyst, just kind of progressing through. And then I got curious about what else is there in cybersecurity, because, okay, I'm doing this, I know this now, and I'm providing all these recommendations in my reporting and things like that, but I actually don't understand what companies do with this recommendation, or if does anyone read my report?
Yes.
So I went into consulting, changed careers, complete kind of, I'll just take a leap of faith and see what happens. So I joined consulting world again. I was there for about 3 years as well. Very scary move at the time. I remember my very first day looking around the room and understanding about 20% of what my colleagues were saying. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, okay, it's gonna be a big one.
Yes.
So yeah, massive learning curve in terms of what I was actually looking at, complete kind of different perspective. But again, able to bring in what I did in CTI to kind of bring that value into what I was doing now in consulting.
Okay. So just before we fully move on to the consulting side, so the CTI 3 years that you were having, so was it very much on the strategic level? Was it more tactical, technical? What sort of style of CTI?
It was strategic, but kind of moving between tactical and operational a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So it was more, because it was client facing at the time, it was more looking at what's happening out there and what that means for different industries, for different organizations, for specific clients that I was working with. So it was quite strategic, but again, it could have been technical in terms of, hey, or operational in terms of, hey, tell us what our exposure online is, or, looking at IOCs and things like that. But what I said before around, I was writing the reports and I was doing all this analysis and really interesting kind of data work and investigations. And I provided recommendations. I just wasn't sure if anyone ever read that report or what they were doing it with it. So it was technical, I'd say, up to a point, at which stage I felt like I'm missing that what's next
Yes.
in terms of that.
So why consulting? Why not go? Why not go into a SOC? Why not go into a different? Why not go internal with CTI? Why go consulting?
So internal CTI came after. I did move in internally. Consulting, because I was still client facing. It was still a client facing role.
Okay.
And
that was important at the time, was it?
it was important at the time because of the, I guess, stereotypes that were going around almost around, it's difficult to go from client facing to internal, or it's not as fun because you don't see as many, it's not as varied, or you don't learn as much, or there's various, I guess, ideas.
Yes.
In terms of what people want to do. I found that it's absolutely not true. But yeah, that was why at the time it was almost like, don't go internal because it's not as fun as being client facing. So I thought consulting is actually a good area that's varied enough, and it will allow me to move around a lot. I'm also a very curious person, so I like challenging myself and kind of doing, like, learning various things. So I thought, okay, well, consulting is that, because you jump from opportunity to opportunity, from client to client. So I would be 2 months doing suppliers, and then I was doing data, and then I was doing, I don't know, GDPR, or writing ISMRs and information security policies, and so it was very varied. So it allowed me to get that flexibility and also that thinking.
Yes.
In terms of the companies, okay, well, now you have a problem. I can see how what I used to say before might have made no sense, or might have not gotten anywhere because you don't have the budget or the resources, or it's just not one of your business goals or priorities right now. It's like, okay, cool. Good recommendation. Thank you. I will put that in the backlog, and we'll get to at some point. So it gave me that perspective of what companies, like the realities of the role, I guess, and why certain things might not actually work the way it does on paper.
Yeah.
And just general best practice.
Yeah. I recently did a podcast with Lauren Wilson, who's field CTO at Splunk at the moment. And she mentioned that she gets a lot of people beginning in the industry approach her and say, like, okay, what is the best area of security to get into? And she unequivocally says that incident management is what would her recommendation be, because of you're getting exposed to absolutely everything. And it gives you that breadth of knowledge. Do you think that you mentioned there when you moved into consulting that that you I understood like 20% of what everyone's saying around me? Do you think that because you grew up your first 3 years in CTI, you're like, oh, I might have specialised a bit too much in CTI here, and I might have just spread myself a little bit too thin moving into such a polar opposite environment? And do you think another environment would have suited you better? Or do you think that it was sink or swim and I came out the other side swimming? What's your thoughts?
I think whatever you do, what matters is what you do with that knowledge when you move into something new. So what I found throughout my career is not what you know is important, but it's only half the story.
Yeah.
It's how you can apply it to different environments. And this is where having a non-linear career is actually an advantage, rather than going through the steps and following and staying very specific into something, which is great if that's what you want to do. But actually having that non-linear perspective gives you the visibility of what other teams are struggling with, allows you to understand stakeholders, lets you understand risk in a wider perspective. So actually, I think it's not really about what you learn at any point in time. It's about how you can use that and apply it in the future. So what I found with technical, for example, I would not consider myself a technical person. I'm a security manager, engineering manager now, and compared to my engineers, I'm not technical at all.
Yeah.
But there's different definitions of technical, for example. So it's understanding the language that different teams work. So risk will speak in terms of, exposure and just getting things fixed.
Yeah.
Technical teams will speak in terms of configurations and rules and logs and things like that. Business leaders will talk in terms of customer impact and cost. If you can understand those 3 languages and put them all together into your work, that's what gives you that perspective and that the ability, I guess, to be more flexible, to make decisions, to unlock, new areas, I guess, that maybe wasn't explored, and to bridge those gaps between very technical teams and maybe non-technical teams.
Yep.
I find I don't think it matters where you start off, to be honest. I'm biased because CTI, I still love CTI, even though I've moved away from it. I'm still kind of one finger in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm biased, and I think CTI is a great place to start because it offers you the perspective of risk. And risk is something you should take with you everywhere. No matter what role you're in, you should always be thinking, what's my risk here? What am I trying to resolve by doing this? But really, wherever you start, it's actually what you take away from that role and how you apply it. And using that, I understand why this team might struggle to do this, because I've been there and I've done that, and just having that perspective of the daily realities of each role and each stakeholder.
Yeah, I really
helps.
understand it. It's understanding who you're speaking to at the end of the day,
Yeah,
and what is important to them.
And understanding your stakeholders is another big thing, right? Like whatever role you are, whether you're a CEO or a CISO or an analyst or whatever your role is, you always need to understand your stakeholders in order to be able to provide results. And one of the things I like saying is don't focus on the outcomes, on the outputs, focus on the outcomes.
Yes.
So instead of saying, hey, I went and configured X, or I turned on Y, or I wrote a report about Z, say instead, by doing this, we saved 300K.
Yes.
By doing this, we improved our detection capability, or we, reduced our risk exposure by XYZ. So it's actually focusing on what the outcomes is and speaking your stakeholders' language rather than your immediate team. And that's where that non-linear perspective, no matter where you start off, comes from, I think.
Yeah, no, it's this security. If you're not in it, it's a bit alien. But what isn't alien is everyone understands, time saved, money lost, value to business, whatever it might be. So you're speaking in their language. So obviously, you stayed in consulting. Was it for 3 years?
About 3 years.
Yeah. So obviously, it must have clicked at some point. So when did it click for you? When did you start to feel comfortable?
Oh, I don't know when I started feeling comfortable.
Okay.
I'm never feeling comfortable, to be honest. If I feel comfortable somewhere, I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. I think I just missed CTI. So I thought, actually, okay, I've gained all this perspective, but actually I really enjoy CTI, so I want to give it another go. I didn't want to go back to doing the same thing, so I thought, right, it's time to move internal, see what they do there, see how they do things. Let's take it to the next level now. So I moved internal, and I actually moved at a point where I was already a manager level. So I moved where I was building a teams from scratch. So that was a whole new challenge. I had help during my consulting time. Again, I feel like I'm always one finger in CTI in some kind of way or another. But during the time I was consulting, I was actually helping the internal CTI team form up. So I was supporting, kind of collaborating here and there when I had time, kind of volunteering to help up processes and kind of give opinions on how things should work and what kind of focus the team should have, etc. And kind of just, when I did my interview to take this role, to set up a new team, that was a whole new thing I was doing. But I was able to actually say, well, I've never done this before, but actually I did volunteer to help out doing this at my previous company. And this helped me because XYZ, and just kind of using, and again, it's using what you've learned to try and apply it and sell it in a new role. Yeah. So went internal to create a new CTI team from scratch. Again, about 2.5 years, 3 years there, doing that from the beginning, tactical, operational, strategic, breaking them up by the 3 areas, looking at the priorities, starting off with tactical, made sense, IOCs, and, getting the base level set up first, and then slowly building up to understanding geopolitics and using different kind of models for applying that to the business context and to risk. Again, bridging that stakeholder gap between what's the technical teams, what are they looking at, what are we seeing in the SOC, what are we, what control gaps do we have, to then bridging that to what's our business context, where do we operate, what does the business want to do next? Do we want to open a new business in a new country? Do we want to open a new app? Or, what's the next 5 years strategy for the business? So that was really fun as well, just trying to bridge those gaps together and building that very focused CTI team
Yep.
in terms of actually delivering value.
How did you change in terms of your first stint in CTI to your second stint in CTI? And obviously you had that experience of consulting in the middle. You've mentioned throughout this podcast that it's all about taking what you've learned and applying it into that next role and keep on sort of equipping yourself with these skill set. How did you differ? Obviously, we all grow and evolve, and we all naturally will get better. But yeah, your first stint CTI, second stint CTI, experience in the middle. What did you learn?
It's a hard question. I think it comes down to that understanding of why certain things might not be possible. So when I first started off and when I was doing kind of recommendations and best practices and, hey, I found a gap, so you should fix it because it's a gap.
Yes.
Without having the actual context around where actually you might not be able to, or you might not even want to. I think going internally with that knowledge that actually there are other priorities, there are other constraints. There's regulatory compliance, for example, that companies might need to consider that I was, never thinking of when I started off in career, because that's not really what you think of.
Yeah.
It was almost like that getting away from, I think that's the point, I think, when I stopped being so drilled into my day-to-day. I need to write this report, I need to turn this on, I need to deliver this. And actually trying to remember the why and the so what behind everything I do. So in every project, I'm like, okay, who's my stakeholders? What is it that I'm trying to achieve by doing this? Yes, I'm turning this on. Or yes, I'm writing this report, but why? Why am I doing that? How is this intelligence or this deliverable going to be used by whom? How much does it cost? Is it realistic? Does it align to business goals? So I think that's what changed in allowing me to have that perspective. It's just, that understanding that some things might not actually be possible or might not be prioritized.
Yep.
And going into forming a new CTI team with that knowledge actually really helped because, I might have had a certain idea about what I think a CTI team should look like, but actually then the business said, well, no, that's not the way we want to do it. We want to focus on, I don't know, X, Y, Z. So then you have to adjust, adapt and be flexible about how you prioritize and how you change your strategy and how you deliver the work to those expectations.
Yeah, really interesting point. And a common theme from you that I'm picking up throughout this podcast is that whenever you start to get a little bit comfortable in a role, it's time to move on. You clearly are very comfortable with the uncomfortable. And at the end of this, that wasn't the end for you. You then got very established in CTI, and you're like, I'm gonna go into something that again I'm unaware of. So talk to me about what you're doing today then.
So I moved from CTI to security engineering, and again, whilst I was in CTI, we had a security engineering team. It was one of those things, like when I started off my career, be like, I could never do that. You guys are just magic behind the scenes. I have no idea how you do that. Yeah. The opportunity came up, and I met about half the requirements in the job description, I think. So I was reading through, I was like, I don't know if I could do this, but I'm just going to give it a try and see what happens. It's really interesting. So let's just see what happens. So yeah, it was a challenge. It was taking myself, I thought, well, the next step for me in CTI would be probably doing something similar. Okay. Or maybe taking over a bigger team, but really realistically, it's kind of doing the same thing. Yes. In various different environments. So I thought I want to do something different. I want to see what else is there. So yeah, security engineering, did the interview. I was very honest, and I'm always very honest in interviews. That's what my best tip is, don't lie. Yes. If you don't know something, don't try and make it up. Don't get Copilot to give you the answer. Just be very honest and say, hey, I've never done this before. Yeah. I don't know how to do this, but I can learn. And what I can give you in the meantime whilst I'm learning is X, Y, Z. This is where I can bring value. I got the role, and it was, again, finding myself in a team of very technical people, and they were sitting there and explaining things to me. I was like, okay, just write everything down, and, I think I spent the first 3 to 6 months just listening and taking things in. And to be honest, that's what I do when I go into these uncomfortable situations is I'm present, I'm here, I'm listening, but I'm going to listen first. Yes. Get it all in, understand it properly, and then go and do things and have my opinions and bring my value in. But that's what I do now. So it's actually worked really nicely in terms of accidentally worked really nicely, to be honest, in terms of bridging all those three areas, all the multiple areas of cybersecurity into now security engineering. And it allowed me to bring a team that was very focused on technical stuff to actually understand risk a little bit more and provide business value, and actually move away from we recommend you do this to actually let's get this implemented, because I'm able to speak those languages of the 3, 5, 6 different stakeholders. It's just articulating that and making them understand what is really happening and what that really means for them. And then that takes the discussion away from we recommend this happens to let's get this implemented because this matters. And it's also that bringing and what I found a lot actually with this role is actually using data to tell your story rather than using the story to present your data. So what I mean by that is you have, and this applies across the roles, I think, definitely did in CTI, but I wasn't thinking like that at the time, and I wish I was. But when you're focused in your day-to-day, you have all this data you're working with, whether it's technical, whether it's strategic focused in CTI, whatever it is, you've got a lot of data that you're working with. And as a passionate professional, you're very passionate about the data, and you want to talk about it and you want to share it with people. Now, what I mean by don't use use the data to tell your story rather than the other way around is if there's a problem to be resolved and you go throwing data at your stakeholders or at your manager or at senior managers, they'll be like, okay, I get it, but what? So what? Again, it comes back to that, so what? So it's actually use your data to tell your story. Swap it the other way around. Instead of throwing data at them, use your data, make it valuable, and then that way they actually appreciate the data more. So use your data to say, by doing this, we found a gap here, or we found that we could actually save the company £300,000 by looking at XYZ, or cutting this, or putting together all these different data standpoints and adding them into one, or whatever the data is and what it looks like. Actually using that to tell your story gets more stakeholder buy-in, gets them more involved, but actually also keeps your teams more involved and motivated as well, because it offers them that, like, okay, I know why I'm doing this. It's not just something that I do now and it's gonna get forgotten tomorrow or ignored. It's something that I actually know it matters, and it's gonna do something. People are gonna do something with it. Someone's gonna read that report. Someone's gonna do something with this, because it tells the story that it aligns to what the stakeholder wants to know or needs to know.
And I suppose that evolution, it answers the question of a younger Bianca, where you're like, you're writing them reports, you're like,
exactly.
Is anyone actually reading this? Are we actually making this intelligence actionable? What are we doing with this?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really curious as to how I sort of want to get into the psychology now, in terms of like how, firstly, you're able to leave ego at the door, in the sense of when you're moving into these environments, you're like, for the first 3 to 6 months, I am going to listen, I'm going to be a sponge. Because more often than not, people like, once they get comfortable, they're like, yeah, right, cool, yeah, I know I can do this now, and I've proved it to myself, and I'm gonna enjoy sort of like feeling good at my role. But you like, no, that's a bad sign. That I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna go somewhere else. I'm gonna learn again. I'm gonna be the newbie again and again, and it's not easy to do that. Everyone says
not easy.
Everyone says like, oh yeah, I'm really, I'm always push myself out of the comfort zone. Are you though? Are you pushing yourself out of the comfort zone? And how are you doing that? So, but you're proof in the pudding that you do it. So, how do you tap into your own psyche in the sense of like, right, cool, there's warning signs here where I'm getting a bit too comfortable here. Let's do a change. What are the warning signs for yourself, Bianca?
I think imposter syndrome is my warning sign.
Yep.
And it's funny because I'm turning that around. So imposter syndrome is usually seen as a negative thing, right? Like you don't want to have imposter syndrome. You don't want to be in that position to feel uncertain and, oh my God, can I do this? Yeah. But actually, I don't know at which point in my career, or I don't know, to be honest, it's going to be the end of me at some point.
Yeah.
But but I use it as a friend. So the moment I no longer feel like I'm an imposter in the room, like something's not quite right here. I'm not really learning anymore. It's getting a little bit mundane, you know?
Yeah.
I know how to do this now. So I guess that's my warning sign, is the moment I feel like I walk into a room, I understand everything you're saying, I have an opinion about it, I don't need to go back and do my research, I don't need to learn anything new. Like, okay, well, that wasn't a very interesting meeting, because I came out of it being like, yeah, I smashed that, but I didn't take anything away for myself on it.
Not moved forward.
I've not moved forward, exactly. It's nice to have that, don't get me wrong, I love it. So it just feels to me more like when I get there after I've struggled, it feels like a bigger achievement rather than having stayed in that environment continuously. And it feels like bigger achievement that way. So I think that's what I do. So I just try and use the imposter syndrome as a friend.
Nice.
When I start questioning myself and when I feel like, doubts and, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, okay, good, we're there. What do I need to do? What am I missing? What knowledge am I missing? Why am I feeling this way? What is a decision? Do I need more training? Do I need to research this more? Do I need to speak to my stakeholders or my team more and understand this more? What is it making me feel this way? And then you move forward on that. So I think, using imposter syndrome, not as a threat, but as a friend, is one of my biggest advice, to be honest. It's just tap into that uncertainty and make it your advantage.
Fantastic point, fantastic. And as a bolt onto that, I have like a mini series on this podcast, The Boots to Boardroom, where I interview a lot of ex-veterans from the military. And one of the taglines that always runs through it is like they have been in life or death situations. So when they've come into the corporate world of cyber, it's like calm down, everybody. It's like the world is not going to end. And what you were saying there about, okay, I'm feeling a bit of an imposter syndrome here. I recognise it. Everybody just calm down. I'll lean back on my skill set and we'll get through this. And it's kind of like, if you bolt that on, it's like, it's very, very similar. And I draw parallels between the two, because the world's not going to stop if you can't do a certain element of your job. It's just be like, okay, it might just slow down for a second.
And the thing is as well, what we have to realise, I think we get drawn into this idea that we need to know everything. You don't need to know everything. The world would be very boring if you knew everything. That's the reason you have a team. That's the reason you have a manager. That's the reason you have, a team behind you. Go and ask those questions. Go and say why. Ask the stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question, right? Go and ask those questions. Hey, I don't understand this. I don't know why this works. I think I've asked one of my engineers like 5 times to explain something to me. I was like, I still don't get it. Can you draw me a diagram so I can understand this, because I don't get it. And it's just that, and it is scary, right? You don't want to be a manager who's asking the team members, being like, I don't really understand this. Can you draw it down for me? Like, it is a little bit, oof, my ego is hurt by this. But you just have to realize that's just, I have other skills, and I'm in this position because you don't know what I know. I don't know what you know. We can tap into each other's knowledge. That's what it is.
One last question for you, Bianca. And it is essentially a bit of a left field one, but it's one that started to reoccur as an ever-present on the Security Space podcast, and it is all about your Security 5-side team. Now, if you were starting a company tomorrow, and you can only bring some people that you've come across, whether you've worked with them or just know of them in parallel teams, or anything like that, it's basically just to give a bit of a shout out and a bit of putting some people in the limelight where you're like, I'm really proud of the work that you've done. So is there anybody that comes to mind as part of your Security 5-side team?
No, that's such a hard question, because there are so many people I can think of. I think in no particular order who comes to mind, I would say Naveed Fazal, Luke Stedman, Gemma Harmon, Ben Sweet, and Daniel Main, I would say. I think would be my 5. They're split across various areas of cybersecurity, various seniority levels. I think I could build a really good team with those people if I was to start something new. I think it comes back to that curiosity and mindset, and hey, what's not working? Let's make it work. Actually, I don't feel comfortable in this, but that's good. We can make this work. So That would be my 5-a-side, I think. And thank you guys for your hard work and support.
Well, look, I don't even need to surmise that Bianca's done some excellent taglines throughout this, but to wrap this sort of up, cybersecurity careers, they do not need to be linear, as Bianca has testified throughout this podcast. So if you feel like you are stuck in a bit of a rut, or you think that you're already at your ceiling, just take a step back. Maybe check your ego. Maybe be like, okay, maybe I'm going to push myself into a role that I don't think I could get. You mentioned a terrific point where you looked at a job spec and you thought, I can only do 50% of this. But you fired in that CV, didn't you? Just to be like, what's the worst that could happen? Literally, it's just going to be a chat. I'll see if I can do the role. And lo and behold, and my previous life as a recruiter, the amount of times that happens is very, very, very common. Go and have chats with people, learn about roles. You just might figure out a new ladder that you can climb. So if anybody's got any questions today, I'll be sure to put Bianca's information down below. But once again, thank you very much for coming on the
Thank you for
podcast.
having me.
Brilliant.
Thanks.